Nadia Beck-Conger.
Hi, I'm Jocelyn Fletcher-Scheich, and we're here to offer you a step-by-step approach for how to do proficiencies.
This video is for anyone who is interested in trying proficiencies. We're going to offer some specific steps for how you could build the proficiency architecture for your specific class. We've organized this video into two parts. Things you can do before you get started with the class, so perhaps in the summertime, and things that you can do once you're well underway teaching.
The first thing we did was to create proficiencies. We did this by looking at the Common Core standards, figuring out which standards we were already teaching and assessing, and turning those into our proficiency statements. We took the proficiency statements that we felt were layups. They were easy for us to assess because we already had some of the lessons to teach those skills. We had already been teaching them and assessing them, and now we needed to turn them into proficiencies. We also decided to look at skills that were most essential for students to be able to show that they could do before moving on to 10th grade.
Initially, we chose 17 proficiencies that we felt were most important. Throughout the year, we realized that it wasn't practical to assess all of these proficiencies, so we narrowed them down to our 4 largest proficiencies to assess in the first year.
So once we had picked our proficiencies, we needed to articulate them in a way that would be clear to students and families, because this is new to us, and so clearly it's new to them also. We broke our proficiencies down into learning targets, and those learning targets are the mini steps along the way that you would teach in order to get a student to proficiency.
Here's an example of what learning targets look like for our proficiency. I can annotate a text. As you can see, there are several bullet points that break down what it means to actually annotate a text. These bullet points are what eventually will show up on the proficient column of the student's assessment rubric. Learning targets informed daily instruction and help students focus on the skill at hand.
So far, everything we've talked about are things that Jocelyn and I did in the summertime before we had students. And we're guessing that if you're watching this video, either you're planning on doing it in the summertime too, or you're doing a proficiency-based unit, or maybe a specific proficiency-based assessment. Everything we're talking about from here on are things you can do once teaching is really underway and you have students in front of you and you're already doing the work.
To post proficiencies around the room so that students can see them. Then you need to teach students what proficiencies are so that they know what they're supposed to do.
Proficiency is a system that the teachers have been integrating into this year, where they try to focus on like strong points and important aspects of the year that the students should know. And to make proficiency, you have to have a good basic foundation for the learning. And if you don't make the foundation properly, you'll have to keep doing it until you do.
Jocelyn, tell me what you think about pre-assessments.
Well, Nadia, pre-assessments are best practice, and everyone should do pre-assessments to see where their students are and then change their teaching based on where their students are, because that's how we use backward design. What do you think about pre-assessments?
I think pre-assessments are annoying, and here's why. I find it really hard to figure out how to design an assessment that doesn't demoralize students, so it's easy enough that they can do, but it's hard enough that it actually gives you good information about what they can and can't do, about what they do and don't know. So sometimes we did pre-assessments, and sometimes we just didn't.
You're going to have to do what feels best to you.
Next is teaching. You don't have to do anything different than what you've always done. Teach the skill or content in a variety of ways with lots of opportunities to practice. One thing we implemented this year was a series of quick checks. These quick checks allowed students to be assessed during class on one of the learning targets that related to the proficiency. These quick checks were just that. They were quick, they were often done on an index card or through a Google form, and they evolved throughout the year. We found that students really enjoy this constant feedback cycle.
People can learn new things and get better on their work because the teacher can show them what they need help on.
Good. Is that different than other classes you've taken?
Yeah, most classes I've taken that don't have proficiency when the teacher gives us work, she doesn't she just gives us a grade instead of a proficiency, and doesn't really show what able to work on.
When I don't exceed, I just read the feedback and I think about it and I try to get into my head what I could do next time.
So you've done your first proficiency assessment. You thought the students were ready, and you've gotten your data in front of you and you've looked at it, but you realized students didn't all make it to proficiency. So what do you do?
Well, here's some things that we did. For example, on our first proficiency, which was annotation, we found that a good number of our students, over 70%, were proficient on the first try. And so we continued on and didn't necessarily go back and reteach that to the whole class. We incorporated it into what we were already going to be doing, and then we made time to work with those specific students that hadn't gotten to proficient. But with the summarizing proficiency, only 40% of our students were proficient on the first try. So we really had to go back and find ways to reteach that. While still moving forward with our content, we had to find ways to reteach summarizing in a way that more students could get more practice, because clearly that's what we needed.
We made sure to share the results with students, and we gave more time for practice. When students became proficient, they loved putting that sticker next to their name. We worked to create a robust culture around callback. Students saw callback as a time to get extra help instead of a punishment.
Callback helps a lot because teachers take the time in the day to stay after school and help kids who need help with homework and stuff get caught up if they're falling behind.
Sometimes it's like some of them are really hard. You have to keep retaking it till like you're proficient, and it takes a while sometimes.
Students who were not proficient on a second try needed a different approach. They were required to seek individualized instruction, and sometimes they were offered alternative assessment formats. So often this was verbal instead of written, a graphic organizer instead of a whole paragraph.
So did you have to retake a proficiency?
Yeah, we did because the teachers here they care about the students. They don't want the students here just to get a bad grade. So they take more than one proficiency test.
This was one way to build a proficiency-based system. It's the way that we tried.
And it's the way that we tried the first year. Next year will probably look a lot different. So come see what we're doing next year, and we would love to hear how you all have figured out better systems for proficiencies in the future.
Thanks.
Thank you.